Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Early, field agronomist in North Central Indiana, coming out of winter hibernation to fire up agronomy updates again. Three topics I wanted to talk about this week. Brief rainfall update from last week's rain, showing the differences across the state and states around us and how fortunate we are. Brief update on soil temperature where they stand today. And then lastly, talking about Pro Box sweats. So I know probably nobody listening to this has any clue what that's about, but it's something I want to cover today and something simple that makes a pretty big difference when weather's like this. So let's start out with the rain update. So let's go to the rainfall map. This is the from the 28th of March till yesterday, showing the rainfall amounts. These are radar estimates across the state. Have my area there circled, and we were very fortunate. So we were mostly in the 2 to 2.5 category for most of the area, and it lessened as you went further north and west. And then you look to the south, greatly increased the amount of rain that fell, especially when you got down into southwestern Kentucky and northwestern Tennessee. So we got about the rain that was forecasted for us. Our soil really needed it. I'm just driving around this morning. I was just amazed how the soil had gobbled most of that up. So we do have some standing water in some places, and it's the typical places we get them. But this really helps start to replenish our fields, and now we got some tile running. So we needed the subsoil moisture in case we run into dry patches throughout the year. So I'm very grateful that we were blessed with this rain. Soil temperatures right now measured at most of the Purdue stations are on the cold side, just like you would guess. So this winter had been particularly cold, not really snowy or full of precipitation, but we really were on the cool side, and our soils definitely show it. So you can see across the state, up at Penny is a low at 42 degrees, up to a high of almost 60 in very southern Indiana. So I know people have asked for the soil temperatures. I generally don't get too wrapped up in soil temperatures from day to day because they fluctuate with sunshine, the color of the soil, and such. So this isn't a big guideline for me, but I had questions asked or people had asked what the actual soil temperature is, and as of yesterday, here's what they look like. So one other thing, I don't think I put this on the main slide or the main uh, slide I started out with. I want to touch on corn planting day. I share this every year, either in text format or printed format. This is looking at planting date by yield. So as we go up the scale on the left-hand side, that's a departure from the trend line yield. And then across the bottom going from left to right, that's how much was planted after May 15th in this particular case. So the reason I wanted to show this is to show that the correlation is not good. So I know people aren't as axle wrapped on corn planting date as they used to be, and people are paying more attention to soybean planting date as it should with soybeans. But for me, I just don't get too worked up if I can't plant corn even into mid-May. It's the yields on later planted May corn have been very good. We've had to do it because of weather several times, so this just shows how unimportant the planting date is for corn. So I don't suspect anybody's probably too worked up about getting corn in the ground yet, but if this wet trend continues, it's going to be a long time before it starts to bother me. So one thing I always look at when I look at a graph like this is the R squared value. So if I draw this arrow up here, that R squared equals 0.13. So in that particular case, that's telling me how well that planting day is correlated to trend line yield. So when I see a graph like this, that's often the first thing I look to. So an R squared value that is really good would be something like 0.6. So in this case, you can see 0.13 means that the correlation is very poor. So planting date does not explain corn yield over the long term. So which is good. That's a lot of flexibility in corn. So if you can only plant one crop when the weather shapes up, make sure you concentrate on those soybeans. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is the seed box sweat. So I know a lot of you are probably scratching your head wondering what in the world was he talking about when he's talking about seed box sweats. So if you think about your pro boxes of corn or soybeans all stacked up inside of a shed, they're all stacked tightly together. They look really nice. Basically, you've created one big ice cube. So as that seed is in our sales guys' warehouses or in our warehouse, none of those are heated. So that cold gets real, that those boxes get really cold over the winter, and those pro boxes do a really good job of holding the cold in. So you get a extended cold period that comes deep into April, like is happening this year. Those pro boxes are going to be really cold when you dig them out and go to the field and plant. So especially those days when it gets really warm after it's been cold, there'll be a lot of condensation in it. So um, the chart on the right tells when the condensation will happen by the temperature of the seed. So in this particular instance, just looking at air temperatures, um, we're gonna have a lot of condensation. So one thing I would urge is that you pull out those seed boxes, you get a nice warm sunny day. If you can unstack them and just leave them out in the sun, that'll do a lot of good to eliminate a lot of the condensation. So we haven't had this happen in the last couple of years, but over my career, there's been 3 or 4 times when we've had this happen, 1 or 2 days when it's been really cold, and then all of a sudden we get those couple 2 or 3 days of nice 80-degree weather, and that seed is just so cold when it gets that warmth, and especially when it gets air down in there, that stuff will really sweat, not only in the box, but when you put it in your planter as it's going through delivery lines. So that sweat combined with some lubricant, that creates quite a mess, especially in the delivery tubes. So as simple as it sounds, just letting those pro boxes warm up and get acclimated to the cold will reduce this in most cases where this is not an issue. So just something I thought would probably occur this year if the weather shapes up and we get a planting window here soon, but something that's pretty easy to do and can save yourself a lot of headaches. So glad to be back with you for 2025. And if you have any questions, please reach out.